Hello, my name is David Pukta, and I'd like to share with you some of the research that I'm doing. Some of you that do not know me question what I do, and the friends that do know me want to know what I am doing. So I've been kind of quiet lately, and I'd like to share with you this. This is a private library of a gentleman named George Merkl that I have been privileged to view and study. The library is quite extensive, but I'm just going to share with you one clip, and I hope you enjoy this and see how this goes.
Turns into light, and light molds into matter. They become the storage battery of light. And light is intelligent.
This program documents a major breakthrough in molecular biology. For the first time, living, intelligent, pre-cellular organisms from which all life forms evolved have become visible. The discovery presented in this report points directly to a new generation of biologists and physicians who have the ability to universally heal and prevent the diseases that now afflict humankind. Every so often there comes a discovery, a revelation that allows us to see our world as it has never been seen before. This program is about such a discovery. Greetings, I'm Larry Emlaw. The information that we are about to present to you reveals a beautiful harmony to the world of inner space. But it is more than just a revelation of beauty and harmony. You are about to look into a microscope and journey back in time. You will witness intelligent, highly organized, pre-cellular microbial organisms that preceded life as we know it today by some 4.5 billion years. The scientific discoveries documented in this report are first, a catalyst, life crystals, and subsequently, an organism called chondriana. Life crystals and chondriana have the remarkable ability to recall ancient, dormant organisms to life from human, animal, or plant genes. The significance of this discovery far exceeds the ability to just resurrect dormant life. Its prime application is in the medical field because these organisms boost our body's immune response to a degree where diseases can be prevented or destroyed where they already exist. The discoverer is the distinguished nuclear physicist Dr. George Merkl, who is the author of the book Inner Space. He holds more than 100 American and international patents for his discoveries and inventions. He is listed in Who's Who in Pioneers in Science today. In many countries, his discovery is already proving to be a major breakthrough in the prevention and healing of disease. In the United States, it still awaits FDA approval. But let's begin with the discovery. In a 1992 interview with medical science educator George Powell, Dr. Merkl explains that it began with nuclear cold fusion.
Well, it's quite a long story. It goes back way to 65 when I was exploring the nature of the macrocapillaries when I rearranged the grains of hyperidium metals into simple geometrical form and opened up the domains to 5 to 20 angstrom units, and I found out that these macro channels have superconductive properties and capable of absorbing free energy. This process was the first controlled low energy fusion process. The physics which I discovered here and worked out was leading me to the second and third cold fusion process, where I actually produced miniature hydrogen bombs you can see the halo, just a miniature hydrogen bomb, as it was demonstrated to the Department of Energy and the 30 executives from the energy companies. Here's the proof when I made synthetic titanium, the fusion tracks. This is a 40,000 magnification of the fusion track, produced enough energy in a 40,000 inch area to heat a cubic inch of material instantaneously, 3,000 centigrade temperature, which would be equivalent to hundreds of millions of centigrade temperature that was generated on top of a hot plate. I created paramagnetic centers, and I discovered that in these paramagnetic centers I was able to produce enough energy to reverse the spin of the proton.
The information gained from the cold fusion experiments led Merkl to observe that the same free energy that facilitates cold fusion is also found in the cellular structures of all life forms. Merkl discovered that you could take the genetic material from any living thing, a plant for instance, combine that genetic material with the 5 carbon sugars, and the combination would attract free energy. Furthermore, the free energy crystallized the genetic material. Because crystals store and amplify light energy, living genetic material became visible for the first time. This process led to the formation of what Dr. Merkl called life crystals. But there's more. Life crystals also increase the energy level of the genetic material. As this program continues, you will witness how pre-cellular organisms are energized by the life crystals, how they create factories of T killer cells to enhance our immune response and fight off disease. It should be noted that the living forms you are about to see would be invisible to the naked eye. You will in fact be looking into a sophisticated optical microscope that is magnifying the image up to 1,000 times. The life crystals further magnify this pre-cellular life to an average of 12,000 times.
As you can see the life crystal here in action, you can see the enormous amount of energy is released as you place them into water. The life crystal enabled me to replicate the energy level which existed on this planet when the sun was young. Once you crystallize a genetic crystal, they have their own characteristics. There is no two life crystal which is alike. Every life crystal is different, and they all have their fingerprint. See, the engine of life, the 4-carbon nitrogen bond, which sits in the center of the porphyrin, as the nitrogen transfer the energy to the carbon, the lighter carbon is oscillating around the heavier nitrogen. It's an oscillator, it's an energy transducer. And each life transducing its own signature frequency, which frequency then sets the sequence in the DNA molecules of the adenosine and guanosine, and determining what it's going to be. And it's very interesting because every form of life have exactly the same engine, the same chemical formula. And this really led me to believe that light has intelligence, and without intelligent light, this frequency could have not evolved. And of course, the question comes up, who put that intelligent light in there? As you know, everything is made from light, and when the universe was born, from free energy, from a burst of free energy, 918 pairs of this free energy, which moves through time and space in three-dimensional vortex, makes up one photon. And 918 pairs of this photon braids into one electron, and 918 pairs of this electron braids into a neutron. And that's how free energy was molded into light, and light was molded into matter. And of course, this matter then filling the cores of our suns and stars, and that's how the planets and life evolved. And basically, light has intelligence. And whoever put it in, whether you want to call it the breath of the universe or the breath of God, it's up to the individuals what they believe. These are just genetic soup with live genetic components. They're rocking and oscillating. When they assemble into life, they pair and depolarize. Actually, I was looking at a life form which was unknown to us until this point. These are more DNA molecules being dispersed in concentrated live crystal solution by depolarization. And they break down to 7 units. You can also see the 7 segments which will naturally separate as the DNA is depolarized. Once the master gene is attached, they come to life, and that's the way life begins.
The ability to see these earliest life forms via life crystals will show the development of a cell nucleus, which is also known as mitochondria. Dr. Merkl calls this precursor to our cell nucleus chondriana. He also discovered that these earliest life forms have gender, male and female. In this segment, you will witness a highly intelligent, well-organized society of microbial organisms, powerfully able to prevent or fight disease.
Here we can see the formation of a primitive nucleus outside of the cell. You can see the genetic material inside beginning to proliferate as the female chondriana begins to evolve inside of a primitive nucleus. Now you can see a primitive nucleus, the female chondriana evolving inside. And you will be witnessing here how the organelle enters into a nucleus, delivering the message in actual footage, actual time, that man has never seen before. He's inside now. And he will exit at the opposite side by depolarizing the membrane. And this is the beginning of the evolution of the female chondriana. The marble on the top is the evolving female chondriana. And the bottom marble is the male organelle from the transfer RNA delivering the message and the genetic material. And you can see the female very clearly. And that was that 7 genetic material with the master genes, which was oscillating, creating an oscillatory field and an oscillatory current, and the two ends polarizing, folding into a circle, and the primitive nucleus coming into existence. Now here you can see the female inside the nucleus with the genetic materials proliferating in a more advanced stage. You see, in this stage the chondriana is not grown up yet. Eventually that chondriana will grow up and come to life like chicken in the egg. Now this is a life inside of a membrane. And now the female came first. The female evolved inside of the primitive nucleus. We can see here a female is orbiting in multidimension, and you can see the colloidal life within, or the genetic materials within, dispersed. They're individually intelligent, working in tandem, deciding when to change directions and that determines the orbiting path of the female. So they must communicate with each other. Now, when the female consumed all the genetic material, those are those little marbles you see inside of her. Those little marbles were randomly distributed within the membranes, which you will see later, and that's what she swallowed. While I was replicating genetic process via live crystal, on December 25th, 5 o'clock in the morning, in 1990, I looked into the microscope and I observed the birth of the first Cambriana.
Maybe that was your Christmas present to the world.
Well, very few scientists would sit at the microscope 5 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day, but I was one of them. And this was the most beautiful present indeed when I discovered the Cambrianas, and I was standing over the microscope for 8 hours with my camera on my shoulder, taking the pictures through the eyepiece, since the microscope was a homemade one. And I decided that I have to record these historic events. And I succeeded to record the first birth of the Cambrianas. And the female Cambriana was giving birth to male triplets on that morning. And here you can see the formation as the genetic materials being segregated and divided into the three males. Actually, as the Cambrianas were evolving or devolving, they changed the method of reproduction from giving birth to division. As I change the concentration and so the energy level in live crystals, the Cambriana will degenerate, devolve, as the energy level is dropping, and eventually turns into macrophage or T cells, like our degenerated or devolved immune cells. These are the ancient ones, way back in time. They're super intelligent, polymorphic. They can change into many different forms instantly, or they can disperse and reassemble in multitudes. When I kill them, they also resurrect in exactly 3 days. They're eternal. And the intelligence even we can envy. Now that one just came out there. That's the second one. And now comes the third one. You can see the cell membrane. It's visible. See the outline of the cell membrane, the inside. And she's coming through the septum, or here. They're looking for the septum, which is the equivalent to uterus. Even today, our nucleus maintained its septum. Through the septum, our nucleus still communicating with the mitochondria in our cell via messengers, exchanging genetic material, having sex by messengers. seem they have a little difficulty to find the septum to exit. It happens sometimes. It's going around. See, finally they came up.
By looking into the microscope with us, you have seen some of the earliest forms of life, and you have witnessed the birth of 3 male chondrions. But what are these life forms, and where do they come from? To answer these questions without plunging into basic biology, suffice it to say that within everyone there exist tiny structures whose job it is to convert glucose, blood sugar, into energy. The conversion takes place in tiny factories known as mitochondria. It is understood that without these conversion factories, energy, and therefore life itself, cannot exist. Chondrions resemble mitochondria, and in fact are the precursors to mitochondria. More importantly, as you will see next, chondrions enzymatically devour bacteria, viruses, cancer cells, or any microorganism that may jeopardize any human tissue.
The chondrions can take over the complete defense to protect the human body against the disease until they rebuild the natural defense. They can also produce interferon to stimulate T8 cells directly, or they can produce stem cells for the production of Langerhans cells. And here they are attacking yeast spores. They can recycle diseases into their own in 4 minutes, to take the genetic material apart and reassemble it into their own. And some of them can actually spinning out 6 or 8 small chondrion embryos in 4 minutes. The energy cells, they live on energy. They require light. If you put them into dark, they will disperse. And they're utilizing the energy for depolarization of genetic materials. That's the way they destroy their enemies and then recycle the leftover dispersed genetic materials. They break down the segments of DNAs into bricks and mortar to the very basic units, all the way down to nucleotides if a genetic disease is involved. They multiply, or rather proliferate, and multi-level. The male also can clone itself and reproduce and give birth only to cygnets and only to male. The female always lays 3 eggs after giving birth to 3 males, laying 3 eggs for the females. But they can replicate themselves many different ways. They can lay down genetic materials, and from genetic materials they can grow factories to produce proteins, for example, or create life, or produce killer cells. Since they are human origin, they are to defend the human body. And they will not tolerate anything in the human body that doesn't belong there. Now these are more developed root system of cancer. It came out from biopsies and then put together with the chondriana in vitro, and the chondriana destroyed the cancerous tissues. As you can, little island, you can see the chondriana already converted to cancerous tissue. Here you can see segmenting the tissue. As a matter of fact, you can see the killer cells, the chondriana, in the root system like a string of beads as they're destroying the root system of the cancer. And then, of course, the cancer will die, and it turns into mashed potato. At that time, it's no longer malignant. That can be removed just by draining or spooning it out, but they're not attached to the bones of my muscles or the tissues anymore. This is a cancerous tissue right there. You can see the root system is coming out of the corner. You see how the root system is growing out of the cancerous tissue. look at them closely, you see the mouth is like a sac. They open up and just suck them in like a vacuum cleaner. But they also can control the opening of that sac to very narrow or very wide. And that sac is just about identical to the sac or the mouth of the opening of a macrophage. So they are interrelated. Of course, chondriana can convert into a macrophage because they're polymorphic. Now they're producing enzymes and proteins within themselves. And whatever they swallow, they instantly depolarize it. They will fall apart and reuse the genetic material to build their own. It's like a melting pot inside of them. And the energy cells, tremendous amount of energy cell, tremendous amount of energy they can pick up, and they can pick up energy from the atmosphere, they pick up life energy, etheric energy, enormous amount of energy, and that energy they use to depolarize genetic material, so they will fall apart. The chains will fall apart into genes, and then they recycle them. So the whole life cycle is based on polarization, those polarization bonds, the whole DNA molecule. And if you depolarize it, it will fall apart. And that's the way they're taking genetic material apart. So they have no mercy when they get those viruses and bacteria, they just completely break them down and reuse the genetic material as normal parts, recycle them. They also have cilius. Sometimes you can see on the next segment, you will see the cilius much better. They also oscillate. You see how they oscillate, just like T cells. T cells with the two antennas, which acts like a tuning fork, generating the frequency and zip the microbes. Now again, these are specific type of chondriana who behaves like those T cells. They're constantly oscillating. Like the other chondrianas you have been seen previously, they do not oscillate like this. So they always accommodate themselves to their local environment. And they really military planners. They proliferate and they sequence their life to meet the military need. Langerhans cells are generals, and the T4 cells are lieutenants, and the T8 cells are the soldiers, or the infantry. And here comes the chondriana. Chondriana are the chief of command. They are the pentagons. Okay, so they can give the orders to these cells what to do in case of danger, if they need to protect their territory. But if the defense system is broken down, or the Langerhans cell is not in sufficient numbers, the chondriana simply can bypass the Langerhans cell and the dendritic cell and give direct instruction to the T4 cells to multiply, or produce interferon to let the T8 cell proliferate. When I take my own DNA molecules or my chromosomes and put it into live crystal, it will be depolarized. It will fall apart to individual genes. And from those individual genes, the chondriana will assemble. One of those little marbles inside that chondriana, when it's getting into your blood cell, it will begin a genetic process, a proliferation process inside the blood cell. It takes exactly 60 minutes. And from your own blood cell, you begin to produce your own chondriana. your own defense. This is particle biochemistry. It's equivalent of nuclear physics, but this is biophysics. I approached life from quantum level. So it is also part of inner space, because you have the outer space to inner space. You go into negative infinity and positive infinity out there. And this is the particle life, just like in particles in particle physics. Both has been put together by intelligent light. If light would be intelligent, matter could have not formed, and life could not have formed. Now here you can see giant, ancient soldiers, T8 cells, not like ours today. They're much bigger, much more powerful. The clock has been turned back on these T cells. If you look at ours, how smaller they are, how much smaller they are, and they have the tuning fork. When they oscillate the tuning fork to zip the microbe with it. Now these cells are vibrators, oscillators. They can put out specific frequency to kill specific microbes. They multiply, proliferate exponentially. One cell divides into two, then each divides again, becoming 4. And within hours, they can proliferate into million. This is only one way the chondriana proliferates when danger arises. And they can reproduce military hardware like these ones, an infinite number of them, to match any disease as the need arises.
Chondriana does not die. According to Dr. Merkl's research, chondriana returns to what he calls colloidal life. Colloidal meaning dispersed into particle life. In the next few minutes, you will witness chondriana, after finishing its disease-killing task, return to the colloidal life from which it came. The video was made in a black field, that is to say, without external light. The images you will see are illuminated by remnants of life crystals.
And this is the death of a chondriana, but not its colloidal life. Its colloidal life will survive because it's eternal. You can see the cell membrane elongating downwards. It's very close to part. It's already popped. And the leaders of the colloidal life will emerge on the top, like beacon of light, leading a nation away. And now the last one, the third leader on top emerging. And as you can see, the rest follow them. And those colloidal life will live for hundreds of millions of years. You can find them in ancient rocks and resurrect them by putting them into water and giving them back to life energy.
Science fiction? Not at all. The world over, but especially in the countries where it is already being utilized as the therapeutic approach to most diseases, what you have witnessed is now recognized as one of the greatest secular discoveries in the history of medicine. Let's return now to Dr. Merkl's interview with medical science program producer George Powell.
Our main interest in this program, which of necessity has a limited time, is to interest physicians, to help thousands and maybe millions of people in the world who could benefit from this latest discovery of yours.
Well, exactly, yes. Now, there is two things which I like to bring forth here. Okay, number one, life crystal and chondriana. Life crystal itself is rebuilding, restoring, rejuvenating. It's not only can slow aging and reverse aging. Now, we are in a terrible shape because we are living in a poison world. Not only the air, but the food and the drugs, everything we use is poisoned. Okay? Like take for all the antibiotics, produced by fungus and yeast processes, and all those yeast winds up in our bloodstream. I will elaborate that later on a little bit, what it can do to you. But you take life crystalline in a pure form, free of all the chemicals, okay? And you provide it, providing these pure building blocks, bricks and mortars, to your system. You're rebuilding your cells, your aging cells rejuvenating. You can proliferate young stem cells. So you can rebuild your organ. Now, I have synthesized organs in vitro. Now, if I can synthesize it, it also do the same thing within you, which we have clinical data now that we can rebuild organs inside of you by using just the basic bricks and mortars, the life crystal, in your system. This is a heart, an embryonic heart, synthesized or grown in vitro from transfer RNA of a heart cell or the heart cell genetic material. This is a thymus. Look, say that the central thymus cell. It's a beautiful, beautiful loop. I grew the organ of thymus too, using just transfer RNA. See, now you can see a little more detail, the evolution of the brain. Now, this is really so beautiful because you can see really the neuron fibers, neuron endings, the neuron fiber and the neuron ending at the tip. And it's alive, you can see. So you can't really fake that, you can't cut that out from the brain. It's very, very nice. Here's the two lobes, the way the cells arrange themselves to grow a pancreatic lobules, which we will see shortly. And within, producing also all the beta cells, Langerhans, islets, and beta cells. And it's very interesting that this pancreas and pancreatic lobules, the pancreatic tubules and the beta cells, everything has been synthesized from human insulin via life crystal. And in spite, or contrary to the teaching, the hormone of insulin contains all the information to run a reverse process to recreate the pancreas. The information is in there. See the two lobules, pancreatic lobules. Now as the cell first rearranging themselves into the two loops, now they fuse together and recreate the pancreatic lobules. If a diabetic has problem with the kidney stops functioning and let's say would need a kidney transplant. Only 5 cc of this product injected intravenously in a 2 weeks period, it will restore that kidney. It will bring out all the deposits from the blood vessels and clean it, whether it's sugar deposits or whether it's cholesterol deposit, it cleans it out and you get a new kidney and the kidney will function normally. So the poor patient